Welcome to Dirksón Photography and welcome to the Canon 5DS review. Now this is a very different approach because this camera came out in the year 2015 and we're heading to 2020. So we're talking about a nearly 5-year period of this camera being on the market. And so the first question that comes up, why did I buy this camera? Now, I think this is a 50 plus megapixel camera, 50.6 megapixel, and there are some uses that make this special. So one is to crop into an image. If you like to take pictures of something that is very far away and you want to crop into it later to get the things closer to you, 50 megapixel give you a lot of resolution to crop into an image. Now this is not something that I like to do. I think there are better ways to crop into an image. For example, to buy a more telephoto lens. I think that's way more useful than having every single file as a 50 megapixel file and then cropping in. The second area that is very useful for a camera like this, a 50 plus megapixel camera, that is fine art photography, that is printing big. That's the reason why I bought this. I want to print big. And so welcome to this review. My reviews are very subjective. I give you my experience with the camera, not the theoretical objective view, but my subjective view from my experience with it. And my reviews are not technical oriented, but emotion oriented, and they live through the images. So let's start off with some of the images I took with the Canon EOS 5DS. So, first of all, before I start, let me tell you that the images that you see in this video are all JPEG images coming from the Canon 5DS, and I edited them in 5 seconds or less in Lightroom. At the end of the videos, we will take a look at the JPEG files from this camera, unedited, and I edit them in 5 seconds or less, so you see how quickly you get to these results. So I took this camera out to Spain for 2 weeks, and let me talk a little bit about what it can do and what it can't do by showing you images from the trip. So the main reason I bought this camera at the end of 2019 is I want to go into fine art photography. What that means is I want to print large. Large is bigger than me. I want to stand next to a frame and the image, the frame is bigger than me. I'm 1.75 m, so think about a 2 meter wide print. That's what I want, or even 3 meters wide or 3 meters large. That's what I want. It is something that I will build up over the next years. I still continue to do the wedding photography and the street photography and all the other stuff that I do. But beside of that, I want some of the images that I take, I think they deserve to be seen. They deserve some quality. Now one way to give an image quality is to print it, and to print it in a great quality, or even go a step further to print it very big. This camera gives me the possibility to do it. When I was thinking about going into fine art, and I see it as a 5-year moment, so I'm talking about it now at the end of 2019, beginning it in 2020, and the moment that I'm looking for is probably in 4 or 5 years. The moment that I'm looking for in fine art photography is I have galleries, I have books, I have big prints, people buy it, people with big houses, with big walls who want big images of beautiful colors. And I might even have a gallery that supports me, or an agent that supports me as an artist, as a fine art artist, beside the wedding photography and the street photography and the other stuff. And I wanted a camera that can handle that area of photography, printing big. So for me there were actually 3 cameras that are able to do it. It's the Sony a7R4, which I think is a phenomenal camera, and it was nearly #1 on my list until I read until I saw the video from Tony Northrop where he said every time you use this camera you have to clean the sensor afterwards because there's dust on it. And that was a moment when I thought going to Spain is not a nice thing, because I'm changing lenses often and I don't want to clean the sensor at the beach. The second camera that I think is very inspirational, that's the Hasselblad X1D, X1D2 that came out. That's the camera for me actually. I can see myself using that for 4 or 5 years and creating a fine art photography momentum with that. But it's a 6,000 camera, 6,000 euro camera, which is okay, but the lenses all cost 3,000, so that's a 12,000 euro setup for one camera, two lenses. And I didn't want to make that commitment right now. Instead, this is a 2,700 euro camera. When you buy it new, I got it for 1,050 euros, so it's nearly a third of the price that it actually still costs, and I get that 50 megapixel that I need for what I want to do. So I took this camera out to Spain. Let's take a look at the images that we can take with it. Now, when you read about a 50 megapixel camera, everybody's talking about, you know, you have to be careful with the shutter speed, with the better use a tripod. And I have a very chaotic style of photography. I move a lot, I shake a lot. Often I shoot with one hand, filming with the second, with my left hand with the second camera. So let me show you a video where I took pictures with this of my girlfriend in a nice flamenco dress, and then we take a look at the images afterwards. Ob man das sieht jetzt hier in der Kamera. Hier nochmal einen Schritt weiter weg. Und schau nochmal, ja genau. Und nochmal hier einfach an der weißen Wand. Ja, ist warm, ne? Ja, schön. Bam, 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 bam. Ja, schön so. So you've seen the video, you see how I work with this camera. The camera always has to adapt to me. I don't change my shooting style. The camera has to work with the way I work, and if it doesn't work, I will not use it. And it performed really well. The camera has two card slots. Let's just take a look at it. We have an CF card slot, which is here. I don't have CF cards, only two, but they are old. And SD cards. I only use SD cards. Everything I do, I photograph to the SD cards. And let's take a look at the speed of the writing to the SD card. I'm now recording in RAW plus JPEG large, so everything is large, 50 megapixels. It sounds like this. And that's the speed in the high frame mode. So you can actually shoot pretty fast, pretty quickly. Let me do it again. So I have the autofocus on the lens off, so you just hear the speed of the sound. That's the speed that you get with shooting RAW large and JPEG large, 50 megapixel. You can also change the quality to MRAW, which is 28 megapixel, or SRAW, which is 12 megapixel. And also the JPEGs have also a variety of different file sizes. You don't always have to shoot 50 megapixel. So I was really impressed with the high speed that I can use, because when I photograph Anna and she's dancing, that is really fast. Things happen pretty quickly, and this camera did hold up really, really well. So let's take a look at the images of Anna. When I take a look at the other cameras that I have, there's the Canon 6D Mark I with 900,000 shots, another 6D Mark I with 400,000, the 6D Mark II with 350,000, another 6D Mark II, and the EOS RP that's filming now with 100,000. These other cameras have some advantages in some situations, like face tracking. The Canon EOS RP, I'm filming now 24mm f1.4 at f1.4. You see the blurry background and the wide angle. and I'm shooting at f1.4, I'm in focus. You see how unfocused the camera is, my eye is in focus. If I go closer or further away, my eye is in focus. This technology is only available to the newer cameras, Canon 5D Mark IV, 62, EOS R, EOS RP, 80D, 90D, and some others. It's not available in this camera. So if you think about, I want to take pictures of people, portraits, can I do it with this camera? Isn't it too old? Is the autofocus not too old? I have to tell you, in my experience, I could take any picture anywhere of anything. Now let's take a look at some pictures of my son running around with his cousin. And look at these images. I think I got really great images of them running around, and I always use the center focus point. So I don't see the autofocus to be an issue. It's just the traditional way. I focus and recompose, which means I use the center focus point, and then I move the camera around a little bit, and then I push the button. And then hopefully the person that's running around is in the frame. So these are now the images of my son and his cousin. So one area that many people want to use this camera for is landscape photography. Now, I'm not big on landscape photography. I always need a person that looks forward to get the image. So if I take pictures of a landscape, nobody is going to get the image because I cannot give that image to the landscape. But I can give an image to a person, and the person is probably most of the time really happy getting a nice image of himself. Anna was really happy of the images that she got with the red dress or with the white dress using flash. But we are in Spain, it's really beautiful. So let's take a look at some landscape shots. Now, what many photographers use this camera with is a tripod. So let's take a look at long exposure photography. I had an ND filter, ND1000, for this very cheap lens, 50mm 1.8. I had three lenses with the Spain, 24L that's filming, 50-1.8 and 85 1.2, the big, heavy, expensive portrait lens. All the images you see from Spain are taken with either of these three lenses. 24 wide angle, 50mm lens standard lens, 85 short telephoto lens. So let's go into the landscape shots. Now, what I wanted to test, I wanted to feel something different. So I wanted to get blurry images, but also sharp on some parts of the image. So I used a tripod and an ND filter, put it on here, used ISO 50, go to 1/8000 of a second, which is possible with this camera. The professional cameras, and this is a €3,000 camera, the professional cameras give you 1/8000 of a second shutter speed, so you can get the image pretty dark. The 50mm lens also has the aperture going up to f22, which means that I can get the lens pretty dark as well. It's not just f16, it's f22. And so I could get really nice images, blurry images with longer exposure, sometimes 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, out in the bright sunlight of south of Spain, of the Costa del Sol, the south, the coast of the sun. So let's take a look at the images that I took there. Now, another area that we could call still life, that would be just walking around town, taking pictures of the buildings. And let's take a look at the images that I took in Malaga. I had this camera like this in my hand, no tripod needed. I just took pictures at all apertures, sometimes f2.2, f2.5, sometimes f8, sometimes f11, and I edited them in a very drastic, colorful way. Again, every image is edited in 5 seconds. It's all JPEG. There is no RAW until this point in this video. No image that you see until this point is RAW. It's all JPEGs from the camera. And the reason is I edited every day in Spain after the day was over at night. And I could use the computer of my girlfriend's parents because we were visiting them. And they have an iMac that's 5 years old, and I could not load the RAW files into their computer. So I only, until now, only have the edited JPEGs, but the editing and the JPEGs look so good that there is no reason for me to use the RAW files at all. Another thing that I just said, the editing capability or the power that you need to edit them. I take many pictures, although with a camera like this I don't take as much as I usually do. I am a little bit more precautious. I think a little bit more I don't push too much on the button as I do with the other cameras, but I still get around 1,000 images a day easily when I'm out all time with the camera. So one thing I noticed, and that you have to be careful about it. Now this camera came out 5 years ago, nearly, and so the computer technology wasn't up to where it is now at beginning of 2020. So it's probably not an issue so much, but if you have an older computer, an older hard drive, an older not so much RAM on your computer, you might have an issue editing the RAW files. You need a workspace that can handle the 50 megapixel files. At the end of the video we go into Lightroom and edit the JPEGs as I did to get the images that you see here, and you can see how quickly or slow the editing goes. Now I told you there were other cameras that I looked at that might be more modern and maybe suit the job better for a fine art photographer, like the Hasselblad X1D2, which is a slower camera, also has 50 megapixels, sensor is also 5, 6, 7 years old. We got it in a 645Z by Pentax, but which suits the job of a fine art photographer more, and it's a more sexy camera. Now the reason I bought this camera especially, and I think why it can be very interesting to you if you want to print large, is it's so cheap now. I got it for 1,050 euros, and the price point new is still 2,700, 2,800. I just looked it up today, which means I can sell this camera very easily right now for the same price I bought it. Can use it half a year, sell it, and then go to the Hasselblad, for example. The other reason I bought it without thinking much was I have all the Canon lenses, so I can use all the EF lenses. The other reason is I have all the batteries from the Canon 5D62 that I can use easily with this camera. So there's no financial commitment other than buying the camera. I don't need to buy another lens, I don't need to buy another battery, I don't need to buy another car, because I have all the SD cards and they work great on this camera. That's for me to buy this camera instead of the Sony A7R4, which probably is the better camera. But it really impressed me. And the thing is, I never looked at the 5DSR as something interesting. It was so boring to me because all the reviews talk bad about it. Low ISO, only goes to 6400, dynamic range, speed, autofocus, everything was in the eye of the reviewer, not up to the competition, plus the price point about 3,000 euros, $3,000. So this camera never appealed to me until just recently, when I was getting into fine art photography and wanting a camera that gets 50 megapixel plus for me to print very, very large. I want to print at 3 meters, and the image printed on the quality that I'm looking for can easily cost 700, 800, 900 euros for one single print. So making a gallery can easily go up to 10,000, and I will make the money with weddings and put the money back into the fine art photography. So in 4 or 5 years you will know my name in that area, maybe, so we'll see. Okay, so all the images that you saw now were in Spain, taken a beautiful light at ISO 50, 100, 160, 400. But what about high ISO? This camera has a maximum ISO of 6400 and goes to 12,000 with a higher mode. So I'm now in Germany, back from Spain, and I took some images. We're just in front of the house, and I just walked around the park, and let's take a look at the images that we took in the park, just to have a different thing to look at. There's also a trade fair here where you have all the attractions for children and beautiful lights. It's a really nice place to photograph. And here I did take some pictures at very high ISO. I put the camera ISO 3000. I put the camera to ISO 6400. Let's go to the max ISO and see how bad it is. So let's take a look at these images just right now. And while saying this, we now go straight into Lightroom and see at close look how the images turn out. So now let's take a look at the ISO capability of this camera. How do images look like when you shoot in high ISO? Now we're here at the market, at the fair, and I shot with the tripod, usually at ISO 50, ISO 100, but just to take a look at the capability of it, I took also some images at higher ISO. So let's go to ISO 6400. Let me just undo everything. So all images, these are JPEG images straight from the camera. Let's just go through them a little bit. So when we, for example, let's choose this image. And I shot with a tripod. Everything that's moving is blurry. Everything that's not moving is very good to see. But this is ISO 6400, and I think this looks really well. We're now at 1:1, so it's a 100% look. And I think this looks really well. If we want to edit this image, I can just use a preset here. Maybe choose Heaven Up. Maybe change a little bit the color. Just like this. So I could leave it as that. And now we see some noise coming in here because I put the lows up. If I put the lows down, there is no noise anymore. So this for me looks like a relatively clean image. We're now at 100%. This is ISO 6400. We have no noise reduction on. And I think this could actually be printed pretty large without having loss of quality, and I think it would look really nice. So let's go further. Here's another one. It's the same place. It's also ISO 6400. And so let's also just use a preset. It doesn't matter which one. Actually, all of them give you, I think, a nice look. It's a little bit slow now because I'm doing a couple of things in the background. The screen is filming. Photoshop is also open, so it's not as fluent as it could be. As fluid. Okay, so this is now how you can edit. We're talking about JPEG. We're not going to look at the RAWs. We just look at the JPEGs to show you how great you actually can edit these in all directions, whether it's color, whether it's the highs, the lows. I think it's a really great quality that you can do so much to these images without even touching the raw file. So this is ISO 6400. This is the 100% view. And I'm really happy with what this camera gives me at this high ISO. When we go even further to ISO 12800, let's just take a look. Let me undo everything. This is the image, ISO 12,800. Now the camera goes to 6,400, and the 12,000 is a high ISO setting that you have to enable in the settings. If I edit this now like this is now the result, and I can pretty much still edit everything here. I can use all these sliders, turn them into any direction, and I think the image holds really well together. And yeah, that was it about the high ISO capabilities of the 5DS. Now let's take a look at the things that this camera cannot do. Now, one thing that I talked about was face recognition. Modern cameras nearly all have the possibility to see a face, and you can film yourself like I do right now. I see myself now at f1.4, and the photography side is the same quality. I can take a picture of myself, f1.4, no problem, and this is what the camera cannot do. So when I was in Spain, I also wanted to take some pictures of me, and the way to do it was not with the 5DSR. I used the Canon EOS RP for that, and I used the remote control on the camera, push the button, camera takes a picture, and it looks like this. Now these images you see now are taken with the EOS RP, 24mm lens, 50mm lens, 85mm lens, and it's also JPEGs that I edited in under 5 seconds in Lightroom. So this is something that I love to do with my kid on the arm, with my girlfriend in my arm, or myself with the camera in my hand. So I have an image of me in Malaga, which is important to me, to have a memory of me in the frame and not just scenery. This is what this camera cannot do. The Canon EOS R can do it, 62 can do it, RP can do it. So this is where this camera falls off. With the new technology, face detection, video mode also, it's not up to the date of modern times. Like filming me now, getting close to the camera, eye in focus, I see myself on the flip out screen, I see am I off the screen, if I'm in the screen, am I good here, I have still a little bit of headspace. This is something that this camera is not good at. What about the competition? No, I think the Sony a7R3 Mark IV are great cameras, probably better technical on this than this thing. But you know, I told you which cameras I have and how many images I have taken with them. EOS RP in 6 months, 100,000 shots. 6D Mark II, 1.5 years, 300,000 shots. Canon 6D Mark I in 6 years, 900,000 shots. I never had any camera cleaned or serviced or anything, and these things fall down all the time. I treat my cameras very badly and never had an issue with anything. So to me it's a fantastic camera. It might not be the camera that I built my fine art photography career on, but it's a great start. The images I took in Spain, I think some of these can be printed very largely and they deserve to be printed largely. Some images of the long time exposure, some images of Anna in the dress, and maybe some images of our son. So I hope I could entertain you a little bit, give you an idea of what this old camera, old lady still is capable of producing. I'm really happy. It feels really great in the hand. It has the same body than the 5D Mark III. Now the main reason to buy this is the 50 megapixel sensor. That's the main reason. If you don't need it, if you don't want to print large, you can go to a 62 EOS R, EOS RP and have a great time. But if you want to print large, I think this is a fantastic camera with a fantastic price point and a fantastic environment around it. There are so many lenses, accessories, batteries, SD cards, everything is available, and you can have a great time with it just like I have. Thank you very much. So welcome to Dirksón Photography and to the Canon 5DS review. I'm now in Lightroom and I have here the edited JPEG files from the camera from Spain. We can now get into these images. Now these are all the images that I have already edited in a black and white style. Let's undo it, synchronize all these images. So all these images turn back to the unedited state. So these are all the JPEG files from the camera. You see it down up here. It's a point JPEG. You see the camera lens I use, 24mm, f8, 50 ISO, 1/500th of a second. That can change depending where I am. 50mm, 1.8. So these are the JPEG files from the camera, which often already look nice. And I don't have to edit much. I can edit, but I don't have to. So these are the unedited images, and the question is now, how do I get to a final image that I like very quickly? Now let's go to this one. I can use the sepia look, but just with the click of a button here. I have already the sepia look. Make it a little bit brighter. That could be a final image. I could also use the same look on another image. So let's just choose one of these images. I go back to sepia vibe. And this would be, straighten it up, this would be the final image. I can go to any image here, click to sepia vibe, straighten the horizon, or I copy this, the editing that I just did to this image, I can copy to all the others that I've selected. And now what happens is the images down here, they all go to sepia with the click of a button. And what I then have to do is just brighten it up, maybe straighten the horizon, make it brighter or darker, depending on is the image already bright or dark. And this is how I can get very quickly to final images edited. Now you might say, I don't like sepia look. It's Spain, it's colorful, we have a blue sky. I want to see a blue sky. And so let's try it again. I undo everything, synchronize again. So these images turn back to how they were. And let's choose another preset. So I go just to the left side, and up here I see already what would happen if I click on one of these presets. So let's just choose Contrasto, and this is now the final image. Next one. I go back to Contrasto, and I have nearly a final image. I can straighten the horizon, the line here. That's it. I can now copy this to all the other images. So all other images have the same look. So when you look down here now, the images all now turn to a different look because I've copied now the look of this image to all the others. If I click on one image here, you see now that it looks different than how it looked unedited. And what I then have to do is just change little bits, brighten it up, make it darker, straighten the horizon. That's what I then have to do. But that's all. And this is how I edit all images. So all images you saw in the 5DSR review or on any other video on my channel, this is how I do it very quickly. If you want the preset pack that I've used, you find it in the description below. This is how I edit everything. So if you ever wondered how I get my images done very, very quickly, this is how I do it. Let's go into some other shootings here. Let's take a look. Let's see what we got here. Now this is something different. This is not the 5DSR, this is the Canon EOS RP, but we can do the same thing. The images that you see now here are the unedited ones. Once I click on it and I go into the editing part, Lightroom will show us the edited ones. The reason is it's the first time I see these images here on the computer, because I'm now in Germany, but I edited them all in Spain. And so now Lightroom takes some time to show me the edited images. It's the same thing. It's the JPEG image. And what I will do now is I would make a selection. I will undo everything, copy or synchronize. So all these images here now, these 10, 15 images are now unedited straight from the camera. It's a JPEG file. You see nothing has been done here. How I would go now and edit these images would be I select one image. It doesn't matter which one. Maybe an image where I see my face. So let's just take maybe this image and then I choose any preset here. And I want to show you some variety so I don't use the same all the time. And you see what happens before I click. You see it up here in the window. So let's just go with maybe just with normal. So this is now the preset. I just have to edit a little bit, small parts. And now I click synchronize. And now all these images down here will have the same preset applied. So all the images have the same look and it's super quickly. You don't have to do much. You just have to choose a look. So if you say, I don't like that look, I want another one, maybe something black and white, I can choose a black and white look, synchronize again. All these images that I've selected, usually I select everything. All these images will now turn to black and white without me doing anything actually to the individual image. I just edit one image and all other images will have the look. This preset pack gives you that power to super quickly edit. And we are just talking about the JPEG files here. We don't even go into RAW now, which gives you even more possibility. But just take a look at what's possible with the JPEG. Let's go to another area here. So let me again undo everything here for the next images. So these, and we will go through these images now. So these are the unedited ones, the JPEG files straight from the camera. This is still the EOS RP. I took all these images myself with the remote control in my hand. Just push the button, camera. I have it here, you see it down here. If I push on the button, camera takes a picture. The camera is on a tripod. How would I edit these images? Again, I click on any preset that I like. Maybe, let's just look. Maybe this beige by Dirksón. Brighten it up. It's way too yellow for me, so I put the white balance down. Let's just keep it like this, and then I synchronize with all the images that I've selected. What happens now is all these images down here will turn the colors to look like this. If I go now through these images, we're still talking about only JPEGs, no RAW files. This is what it looks like super quickly. And what I do usually is I select all images from the shooting or from the session, so all these images have the same look. I've just done it now to 10, 15 images, but usually I do it to all images. And let's do it again. Let's select some images, undo everything, so all images have no editing to them. And it doesn't matter if it's RAW or JPEG. So this is now the unedited one. I again click on any preset. let's go to Industria, synchronize. Now all these images that I've selected, change the colors to match Industria. If I say I don't like that look, we can also use another one, maybe Heaven Up or Darko 2, synchronize again, and now these images change again their look. I can adjust a little bit depending on what colors I like. Do I want a warm look or do I want a cold look? If I want a cold look, I can synchronize again, and now all these images will turn cold, depending on what you want. So this is the way I edit my images. Let's go one more time to the 5DSR, because that's actually what this video is about. And let me see. Maybe this is fine. Okay, so let's just choose these images here, undo everything, synchronize. So I've now made a selection again of these images. We go through these images now. Again, it's only JPEG because in Spain the computer is not powerful enough to edit the raw files, as it's 5 years old. So I didn't bother importing the raw files. I only used the JPEG files, and we're looking at the Lightroom catalog that I had with me in Spain. So these are the unedited images. Some are pretty dark, some are okay. This is very uninteresting. So how I would edit this now, I select a preset. Maybe let's do something very, very strange or crazy difficult. Let me just take a look. We use this one, or maybe Malerei. Let's choose this. This is the one that I've also used. So this is now the look that I choose. I synchronize it with all the images. Maybe I leave the brightening, or maybe let's just leave it. Probably some images are way too bright now because I've brightened this up a lot. Let's go through these images. This looks fine. Before and after looks like this. Left, before, after, with 1 second more or less of editing. And I now go through these images, just brighten it up or put it back darker. And this is a very crazy view. Strange colors. It does not look natural, but I don't want it to look natural. I want it to be different, strange and crazy. And this is how quickly you can do it. If you say, well, that look is not what I like, it's too strange for me, let's choose something else. Let's choose Coloria, for example. Synchronize again. Let's go through the same images and just change parts of it. Brighten it up, darken it. Maybe make it a little bit warmer. Again, we're just talking about editing JPEGs. There is no RAW file here. This is just the JPEGs from the 5DSR at 50 megapixel. So 8500 multiplied with 5300 makes about 50,000. And I just make small changes super quickly. And I think we end the review here. It's getting now to be a very long video, but I want you to get as much out of it. I very often find that if you buy an older camera, but that was a professional camera, that was expensive some years ago, that I find to be a better choice often than to buy a new camera in the low-end price point market. So this camera, the 5DSR, although it's old, it's still very capable. It beats many other full-frame cameras in terms of resolution and sensor sharpness, and gives you the possibility to print very, very large. And this is why I bought this, and I thought for some of you it might be valuable to see as well my opinion plus how I edit the images to get to this look. So, thank you very much.